Good afternoon, everybody. Keith here. Wanted to talk to everybody today about Social Security and FICA. You see that in your check stubs all the time. That's Federal Insurance Contributions Act. And the basic of the discussion in regards to Social Security Administration payments, you see that taken out on your checks all the time. And then you also have the FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and they call that a tax, and they tell everybody that that's required. First of all, I want everybody to understand or realize, and you can call them up and you can ask them, is Social Security a voluntary program? Is it a voluntary social program? Oh yeah. Yeah, it's voluntary. And then you can ask them if the FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, is required, if you're required to pay it. And this is the stipulation, people. Federal insurance. What it is when you apply for Social Security, you're applying for Social Security to administrate a what's known as a foreign situs trust, and that's what your name is on that Social Security card. That's your account access as trustee of that account. Now, what happens is you're being considered as a government employee simply by opening that account. Then you turn around when you get a job, a job, you go out and you sign up on this thing known as an application, and nobody's ever using the right signatures, nobody's asking questions or anything. They're just filling out these W-2s, W-4s, and 1099s, 1040s, and all that, and without even knowing what they're doing. 1040 tax forms are contribution taxes, or contributions. The FICA is federal insurance contribution. The Social Security is a voluntary program, and it's all voluntary stuff that they've got you convinced that it's mandatory to pay. I just got off the phone with one of the guys at the Social Security Administration. I don't know what call center I went to, but he was trying to convince me that just because, or tried explaining to me that, well, even Wendy's employees pay FICA, that makes them a government employee. I don't think so. Just because they pay a federal insurance contribution doesn't make them a government employee. And just because they sign up for a voluntary social benefit program for retirement doesn't make them a government employee. So I assure you what's going on is they're assigning you as trustee of that account when you get that Social Security account, and as that you're a agent for a government account, and therefore you're a government employee. Either way you look at it, if you sign up for Social Security, you're then construed to be a government employee. If you pay FICA, then you're listed as a Medicare qualified government employee. And that's part of the problem. Because if Social Security is a voluntary program and it's not disclosed that as a voluntary program, part of that volunteerism is that you're volunteering to be a government employee. It's not disclosed. Now, I don't know anybody that would be a volunteer to a government agency unless it was one of the soup halls down the street or something. That way they know they're actually working on a voluntary basis, rather than as opposed to being drugged into these damn courts and being forced to perform without knowing that they're performing, and therefore getting themselves in trouble. Jose 4. Verse 6, my people shall perish for they lack knowledge. Understand the words that they're using against you people. And understand that these social programs, these medical programs, these credit programs, they're all nothing but a distraction from the reality of the real things that you should be doing, which is taking upon your responsibilities instead of giving them up to everybody else. Instead of giving up your responsibility to educate your children, take it upon yourself to quit letting other people indoctrinate your children into believing that they have to pay Social Security and they have to pay FICA and they have to have a goddamn driver's license and they have to pay taxes at all. The only reason you would ever pay taxes is to help support a fictional commercial system that isn't required. It's not required. It just makes things convenient for those that want convenience of modern technology. It makes it convenient to forward the value extrinsically from the past to the future so that we can live in the now with big fancy TVs. Hey, what's up, brother? I got my brother Andy joining me up again today. Okay. When it comes to not paying this stuff, first of all, we have to approach the employer. When the government has a corporation under its arm, under its foot, has its foot on that corporation's throat, and is telling it that it has to abide by certain regulations, and that employer is going to do everything it does, it can do to abide by those regulations so that it can stay in business. That means they will also enforce whoever's got their foot on their throat, telling them they have to pay Social Security and they have to pay FICA. They will enforce that as well. And the problem is that FICA is only for government employees. Every government employee, instead of paying Social Security, they pay FICA. And this is the way it's supposed to work. As private people that go out and privately, for worthy of their hire, every man is worthy of his hire. And in his private capacity, if he goes out and gets compensated for his labor or his services from a corporation on the private end, then he is not taxable. That includes what they call the FICA tax. Even though it's a federal insurance contribution, it's like sovereign citizen. It cannot be a tax and a contribution at the same time. That's a misnomer. And so when we look at the Social Security and the FICA, if the government employee is required to pay the FICA as their insurance for retirement, for being a government employee, then the private man, that's the same thing as a private man paying into the Social Security for a private social retirement program when he gets of age. That's the difference. So if you're government employee, that's what the Federal Insurance Contribution Act is for. But in the meantime, if you think about this shit Obama was pulling, everybody's still required to have their own private insurance somehow. So it's all bullshit. You just have to realize what the truth is. And when you find out the truth and you start pushing it, we find out the methods to enforce it. So at this point in time, you may not, I don't particularly myself know what forms to use to extricate the Social Security from your record, as far as that's concerned, Jennifer. I don't know the exact form number, but I'm sure you can Google it. I think it's Social Security, just Google Social Security disclaimer form. I'm not sure if it's, I think it's GSA 636 or something. But Google that, and that'll tell you exactly what it is. And then when it comes to making that disclaimer, you can either use the form that the Social Security Administration offers, or you can use that as an offer and then amend it right on there, putting your own words on their own form as an amendment to their offer, and then give it back to them. Or you can draw up your entire separate own document as a disclaimer itself, using the information that they provide you on that form as a draft, point by point, each point and every point. And then you have your own document of disclaimer. So it's important to understand the words they're using by getting those forms, and then using that form word by word to define it, and then changing each word that you need to according to your own purpose. So if you're going to use it as a total disclaimer to just disclaim the entire account and not have any benefit whatsoever, you can do that. If you want to use it as a disclaimer to still be able to access the benefits that you've already paid in for, then you can do that. And that's why you have to be careful with your wording, because if you word it wrong and do it as some kind of full disclaimer, they will take it as a full disclaimer and then not give you any of your benefits. So make sure you do this stuff right. And that's why I say you pay attention to the words and understand what you're doing. So when it says Federal Insurance Contributions Act, tax, they're standing there running their mouth like anybody else that babbles when they say shit like sovereign citizen. You cannot both be sovereign and a citizen at the same time. So you cannot make a contribution and pay a tax out of the same element. It either belongs to Caesar or it doesn't.
A citizen.
What's up, brother Andy?
Hi, brother. A citizen is a civilian. And if you're a civilian, you're of the militant state, a militant combatant state. So a civilian, right, an occupier, any of these words other than that of man, we don't take on the role unless there's just and fair compensation for taking on that title.
Exactly. And that's what they're doing. The when you do the Social Security count, you're signing up as a United States citizen.
Into the corporation, and
that's
by the way.
The government employee.
Yeah.
That's the government employee.
Corporation to corp. You're in the persona of a corporate body or a body corporate, an entity of fiction, business to business. This.
Right, instead of man to man.
It's not the private jurisdiction of man equity, divine law consciousness, it's that is written by the hand of man for fine and forfeiture and profiteering by the capitalists.
Yeah. But just so everybody understands, because I got in a conversation with a guy. He's a bondsman, and evidently he doesn't know what these laws are and how they work.
Evidently, we are all bondsmen of Christ.
Exactly, and that's the point I was getting to. If you're going to be a bondsman, you better know what that word bond means, because if you don't know that bond means to know,
they will commit bondage upon your personage, barratry, bondage.
Yep. And so when you go around supplying bond documents for people that are committing fraud, and you're the one providing the document, you're involved in that fraud. Whether knowingly or wittingly or not, it makes no difference. You're still guilty.
Ignorance is no defense.
Exactly. And so, I'm trying to help this guy understand that what he's doing, if he did it a different way, and that is with knowledge, so that when he looked over these bonds, he could tell for himself, he could discern for himself whether they were actually bringing a valid bond work or bond order for him, then he would know. But he doesn't know that end. He just knows what a bond looks like, and he knows he's supposed to sign here.
Okay.
So when it comes down to the true knowledge of what you're doing and the enforcements behind it, that's that's the crime. Not
Absolutely.
knowing that you're harming other people just because you don't know you're harming other people. When that fact is brought about, doesn't mean you just stick to your job because that's all you know because you're just doing your job. You're supposed to have that bond um, in in reality between each other, to have that compassion, to know that if your actions are hurting somebody, no matter how well intended they are, you must stop. Do no harm.
Absolutely. That's the
It's
laws of
universal
nature
law.
right there.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to help this guy understand that, if you don't understand the bonds themselves, then how can you go around flipping them out and just willy nilly, having people sign for them?
Hmm.
You're part of the problem.
Signing through
So,
acquiescence and belligerence, thinking that it's proper. And
yep,
the signature is the most valuable thing that man can behold. It's worth thousands and probably not millions of pounds and dollars. It's your valuable consideration. It's your valuable asset. It's equitable asset.
right. It's your security.
Exactly. And we
It's
should
your own
think
private
twice before you
security.
give it
And
away. Exactly. Otherwise,
right.
man autographs. The signature
Yep.
is for commercial realm. It's for the person. So know what you are and know what you're doing.
Right. And in today's commercial world, when we think about securities, I want everybody to understand the security is what holds value now and is transferred from body to body in an intangible sense, because
In the
it's still,
mind.
no matter what happens, the security is still nothing but a ledger.
That's right.
Your security is all the property that you've inherited from the past and are going to pass on to your future heirs and heiresses.
Hmm.
That's your security. In today's commercial world, there is no such tangible security like that. Everything is all fictional and just on ledgers.
Because there's no substance back in the currency. There's no gold since 1931 when they
Right.
removed it.
And this is one of and this is one of the important things about those securities. I try to help people understand this. Benjamin Franklin used to print his own money, and the way he did it was he each print that he made, if it had $10 on it, was equal to $10 worth of gold
Hmm.
or like substance.
Yeah.
So if he had all of his property in his trust, and it was supposedly appraised at a value of $3.5 million, and he gave some guy $2,300 of his bills, and that guy came back to him with those bills and wanted $2,300 worth of property. Benjamin Franklin would have to provide him with that property,
Intrinsic
that
value.
value,
Intrinsic
right?
value.
That
Exactly
intrinsic
that.
value.
Yes. Now it's all
And today you
promissory
can't do
note.
that.
It's all a promise to pay now. You can't
Yep.
discharge a debt with another debt. These notes that we all see, 10s, 15, 20, $50 notes, they're all just debt notes that have no backing or substance to them. They're a belief system.
Yep. Yep.
And
And
the,
that's what we need to get back
the
to
governments
is
today are
deriving our own
licensed.
money.
Yeah, they're licensed to governments today to print their own money, but they don't. So they still borrow it from the banks with the interest rates. And that's why man is enslaved through the birth certificate to pay it back through bondage. And that's why they create the war so they can tax the person to pay for the perpetual killing around the globe or across the plane, whatever you live on. But this is what it is
Yep.
right here. And taxes are paid through
Yep.
acquiescence. And we should be filling the forms, and if you are going to fill the forms, in NA, and it's not non-applicable, it's
Right.
non-admissible. In other words, it's none of your damn business
Right.
what I'm doing.
Non-admissible.
So if I come and cut your grass for you tomorrow, Keith, and you pay me a chicken and a 20, pound of potatoes, how on earth can they take a percentage of this? Man's done trade levy and barter right there. So it's all through
Exactly.
acquiescence and it's all through, indoctrination and cognitive dissonance that man's paying taxes thinking that he's a person, a body corporate
Yeah.
entity.
Yep. And Charlie Oaks, we can print our own money. It's just a matter of the knowledge of learning how to do that again. Like I said, Benjamin Franklin used to print his own money. He wasn't the only one. I believe it's referred to today as certificates of deposit. In other words, you've got property deposited in a trust, and you can give somebody a certificate on that deposit as a promissory note, telling them that you promise to pay them so much value on an intrinsic basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's basically the way you do it is, again, your own bond, your own word. In beginning was word.
Your word
And
is
all
your
you
honor.
have to do is know
Your
what you're
honor is your
talking about.
bond. That's it. It's that's where it's at. If man doesn't take your word as your bond and he requires you to sign something, then he plainly doesn't trust you. And then in that instance, you must think to yourself, do I wish to continue contract joinder and do business in this realm where I'm not trusted?
Right. Exactly. And see, that's the one thing that they're afraid of the most, is the man being able to come back together and being able to make his own deal with each other instead
Hmm.
of having to use that third party representative.
Hmm.
When man is able to get back to being honest enough to step up to his duties and detriments in a contract, then that's why we have these third party interveners upholding each other to contracts, because
Hmm.
people aren't doing that.
They're officious
You know.
intermeddlers. That's what they are, brother.
Yep. Yep. Officious intermeddlers, maliciously prosecuting by vexation of legal process.
Hmm. Absolutely, they are using the force of law to break the common law natural law jurisdiction, like
Well, like I said,
your codes and things, your acts and your statutes.
the common law is a matter of process, and the statute, codes, rules, and regulations that they're using today, along with the threats, and coercion, is what breaks us from that process. It's what instills the fear that keeps us from going forward in the common way. So
Common
understand
sense,
that. That's your
common
common law.
unity. Well, that's right. They're using admiralty commerce law to break common law. Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. It's admiralty, it's canon, it's ecclesiastical, it's maritime, it's all water law. It's all canonized, cabalized, and papabulized. If you want to get down to it, it's a legalese of language. It's separate to the society of that which we are in.
Yeah. And basically, what happens is when they present a contract with you, they pretty much already have you on the ship, and the more they can distract you through that process, the farther out to sea they're going.
That's what it is.
And what you have to basically do is procedurally get them back to shore so you can step on dry
Absolutely.
land and
You
present your
take
common law.
back from the citizenship and you take back the partnership and you jump off of the dictatorship and you put yourself on land as a man away from anything to do with ship and you put yourself clean and dry and show the man that the clean hands and the clean heart and the equitable asset and all good shall prevail.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, anyway, guys, um, just wanted to hop on and explain the Social Security and the FICA thing. That's what's got you classified as a Medicare qualified government employee, and that's where your jurisdictional problems are stemming from to
A
begin with.
ward, yes, you're a
You're
ward
actually
of
an
the state.
employee. Yeah, you're all considered a ward of the state as a
Absolutely.
volunteer employee.
The government has assumed a husbandry role over each and every man, and until you rebut the
Yes,
assumption and presumption that they are that of a juvenile delinquent, then you must come to the age of maturity and tell them who they are, correct their relationship, correct the trust capacity, and man shall stand strong in his own stead.
right. And I believe I found the thing canon law 2057, I believe, talks about that birth certificate sedicate trust. And if you demand that it be collapsed, then they have to collapse it automatically.
Absolutely,
And
because a
so,
man knows his rights. A man without rights doesn't know his rights. That's how it goes, isn't it? But Once you've established that you know whom they are and you can collapse that trust at any minute you wish, you can put the Vatican on notice, you can do all sorts of things, whatever you feel is best for you in your
Yeah.
life. But yes, absolutely you can. Or you can use it, you can use the person to your advantage and for your benefit, like it's there set up to do for man to benefit from.
Right. Right. And that's the social part of it. You know,
Absolutely.
that's the
Once man
social
knows the
benefit
rules
part of
and
that.
how
It's
it's
part of the public.
the birth certificate person is basically it's instrumentation. It's a banking bond. It's a note. And once you know how to produce and present that instrumentation, then that's how you crack this. You know how to present it and when not to present it on the seas of commerce.
Right. It's known as a transmitting utility.
It's
In other
stationary.
words, it is utilized. It is utilized to transfer
Absolutely.
or transmit.
And it's just
And what
stationary.
they're doing,
Until you move it, it's just stationary. Simple as that.
right? And they're just using it as a transmitting utility to transfer funds.
Absolutely.
And know people, funds are IMF funds, International Monetary
And
Funds.
this is
Every
why
program out there.
all
Yep, go ahead.
utility bills are settled through the bond. And when they're asking man for cash to settle these utility bills, they're double dipping the books. They're to be discharged and offset with the pen, not to be given the sweat equity.
Exactly.
Just let them level the books with your signature. This is what man needs to be taught.
Exactly. And I did a video on that a while back on the qualified signature. And the qualified signature is just your retention of rights and then your signature on
Yes,
anything you sign.
yes. On your thumbprint, on your stamp. Make sure you use your
Yep.
stamp for the signification of a live man right there.
Yep. So anyway, that's about all I got. You got anything you want to throw in there, Andy?
Oh, there's much I could throw in there, brother. We could keep talking the realm, the jurisdiction, the jurisprudence, and all sorts for a long time.
Yeah.
There's 2,000 how many acts and statutes to speak of that you could go through in the UCC and all sorts of rules and legislative ways.
Yeah, we'd be on here for fucking weeks.
Exactly. You know, but yeah, we'll just peace and love and all. Keep a positive vibration, keep a heart resonance, and don't let the pessimistic negative mind overrule the passion of the positive heart. How's that?
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good, brother. In the meantime, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. Love y'all. Have a great day, people.
Back at you, brother. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Bye, mate.
Love you.